I told myself I would stop checking my email. That lasted 6 minutes, which honestly was impressive growth. College decisions had turned me into the kind of person who refreshed a screen like it owed me money. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, pretending to work on an English assignment while actually staring at my inbox. My mom was somewhere in the living room. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that made every notification sound feel like a life event. Then it happened. A new email appeared. Ohio State admissions. My hand froze on the trackpad. For 1 second, I forgot how fingers worked. I stared at the subject line. Apparently, my brain needed 2 attempts to understand basic English. Then I clicked. The page loaded slowly, cruelly, like the internet had chosen this exact moment to develop dramatic timing. Then I saw the word, congratulations. I stopped breathing, just for a second. Then I read the line again, and again. I had been accepted to Ohio State. Me, Aiden Miller. The same Aiden Miller who once spent 3 minutes arguing with a cafeteria vending machine because it stole his granola bar. Ohio State had said yes. I should have shouted. I should have run into the living room. I should have done something normal that people do when their future opens a door. Instead, I just sat there, staring, because the joy came first. It did. I had worked for this. Good grades, late nights, essays that stopped looking like words. Music helped too. The songs. The part of me I used to hide until Ryan looked at me like being heard was not embarrassing. So yes, I was happy. I was proud. For about 3 whole seconds. Then I thought of Ryan, and Mason, and the group chat. The happiness got quieter. Not gone, just careful. Because a future did not feel as bright when I did not know who would be standing in it with me. My phone buzzed. Ryan, did you check yet? I stared at his message. My chest tightened. I typed, deleted, typed again. Yeah. I got in. Asterisk asterisk 3 dots appeared immediately. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, his message came through. Aiden, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Asterisk asterisk I smiled, because I could hear him saying it. Warm, gentle, honest. But another message did not come after that. Not I got in too. Not same here. Just silence. A small, heavy silence. Before I could decide what to say, the group chat lit up. Jacob, I got my decision. Accepted. Asterisk asterisk of course Jacob Anderson got accepted. Jacob looked like he had been born with a scholarship committee already approving him. Mason responded first. Rich academic prince has entered Ohio State. Jacob replied. Thank you, Mason. That was almost a compliment. Asterisk asterisk Mason sent a dramatic crying emoji. Then another message. Also congrats Aiden. Our emotionally unstable musician has survived admissions. Asterisk asterisk I laughed. A little. Then Ryan sent. Proud of both of you. Seriously. Asterisk asterisk there it was again. That word. Proud. Ryan meant it. I knew he meant it. That somehow made it worse. Because Ryan was not jealous. He was not bitter. He was Ryan. The guy who cheered for me even when his own answer had not arrived. Mason went quiet after that, which was never a good sign. Mason could turn a grocery receipt into a group announcement. If he stopped talking, something was wrong. I looked at the screen. Aiden, accepted. Jacob, accepted. Ryan, nothing yet. Mason, nothing yet. 2 doors had opened. 2 were still closed. And suddenly, Ohio State did not feel like a celebration. It felt like standing halfway across a bridge and realizing not everyone had reached it yet. My mom walked into the kitchen then. She saw my face, then the laptop, then my face again. Aiden, I turned the screen toward her. Her hands flew to her mouth. Oh, sweetheart. She hugged me before I could say anything, and I hugged her back, because I was happy. I really was. But over her shoulder, my eyes stayed on my phone, waiting for Ryan, waiting for Mason, waiting for the future to decide whether it wanted all of us or only some of us first. The next day, school felt too bright, which was rude. Westbrook High should have looked different after my future changed. Maybe the lockers should have sparkled. Maybe the cafeteria should have played dramatic music when I walked in. Instead, the hallway smelled like floor cleaner and someone's breakfast sandwich. Very poetic. Ryan was waiting by my locker. White t-shirt, soccer jacket over one shoulder. Hair still unfair. Smile still warm, but quieter. "Hey," he said. "Hey." For a second, neither of us moved. Then he pulled me into a hug. Not too long, not too dramatic, just enough to make my chest ache. "I'm proud of you," he said again. I closed my eyes. "Ryan, I mean it. I know." That was the problem. When he pulled back, he was smiling, but his shoulders looked heavier than before. Before I could say anything, Mason appeared. He had a chocolate muffin in one hand and the emotional energy of someone who had either slept 3 hours or made a life decision at 2 a.m., possibly both. "Good morning, successful people," he said. I frowned. "Mason, what? I am celebrating you. You look like a haunted lunch tray. That is my natural glow." Ryan tried not to smile. Mason pointed at him. "Don't laugh, soccer captain. You look emotionally complicated too." Ryan blinked. "Thanks. You're welcome." Then Mason shoved half the muffin into his mouth, which should have made me feel better. Mason eating was usually proof that the world had not ended, but even that looked forced. At lunch, Jacob joined us with his tray. Beige sweater, white shirt, perfect posture. The kind of calm face that made teachers trust him and Mason distrust the universe. He sat beside Mason like it had become normal, which somehow it had. For a while, nobody talked about college. We talked about cafeteria fries. Mason complained they tasted like warm cardboard with ambition. Jacob said cardboard had better structure. Ryan laughed. I laughed. Mason looked pleased with himself. And for maybe 20 seconds, everything felt normal. Then Ryan's phone buzzed. He looked down. His expression changed. Not much, just enough. My hand tightened around my fork. Mason noticed too. For once, he did not make a joke. Ryan opened the email. Read it. Then read it again. I watched his face carefully. No smile. No panic. Just that quiet Ryan expression that meant he was putting every feeling in a box and trying to close the lid. "Well," he said. My stomach dropped. "What?" He looked up. "I got in." I breathed out so fast it almost hurt. "That's great." Ryan nodded. "Yeah." But his voice did not match the words. Mason leaned forward. "Ohio State?" Ryan looked at the table. No, the word landed between us. Small. Heavy. "It's another school in Ohio," Ryan said. "They have a good soccer program." I nodded too quickly. "That's still good." Ryan kept his eyes on the table. "It is." Then he smiled. Small. Careful. "It's still Ohio." Nobody said the next part. But we all heard it. It was not Ohio State. Before anyone could recover, Mason's phone buzzed too. He stared at it like it had personally offended him. "Oh, absolutely not," he muttered. "Mason," Jacob said quietly. Mason opened the email. His eyes moved across the screen. Mason leaned back. "Well," I gripped my cup. "Well, what?" He turned the phone slightly toward us. "I also got in." Ryan looked up. "That's good." "It is good," Mason said. Then he swallowed. "Journalism and communication program. Different school. Still Ohio." Jacob's face softened. "Mason, that is good." "I know." Mason looked at him. And for once, his voice was not loud. "I know it is." That was what made it hurt. Nobody had failed. Ryan had a school. Mason had a school. Good schools. Real options. But not the dream we had built together. Jacob slowly placed his fork down. "We should look at the map." Mason blinked. "The map?" Jacob was already pulling out his phone. "Yes, distance matters." Mason stared at him. "You make emotional pain sound like a logistics problem." Jacob looked at him. "Sometimes logistics help." Aiden Miller, professional overthinker, hated that he was right. So after school, we ended up in the library. For laptops open. 3 drinks. One bag of chips Mason claimed was for morale. A map of Ohio on Jacob's screen. Ohio State, Ryan's school, Mason's school. Lines between them, drive times, weekend possibilities. It was practical, responsible, terrible. Ryan leaned back in his chair. It's not that far. Mason nodded. Yeah, we could still meet up. Jacob pointed to the screen. Weekends would work. I tried to smile. See? Still Ohio. Ryan nodded. Still close. And maybe it should have helped. Maybe it did a little. But sitting there, staring at the map, I realized something painful. Close was not the same as together. Same state was not the same as same campus. Weekend visits were not the same as cafeteria lunches. Different schools meant different mornings, different hallways, different lives without all four of us in the same room. Mason must have felt it too, because he stared at the map for a long time. Then he said, "So basically, adulthood is rude." Ryan let out a small laugh. Jacob smiled faintly. I looked at all of them. A week ago, Ohio State had felt like a dream. Now Ohio felt like a compromise we were all trying very hard to be grateful for. And the worst part was we were grateful. But gratitude did not stop the ache. It only made us feel guilty for being sad. The library got quiet after that. Not normal quiet. Not study quiet. The kind of quiet where everyone was pretending not to feel the same thing at the same time. Mason kept eating chips. Slowly. Which was unnatural. Ryan stared at the map on Jacob's laptop like maybe if he looked long enough, the distances would shrink. Jacob sat very still. Too still. Then he closed the map. Mason blinked. Did you just delete our emotional support geography? Jacob looked at him. No, because I was becoming attached to the little blue lines. Jacob rested his hands on the table. I have an idea. That made all three of us look at him. Jacob Anderson having an idea was very different from Mason having an idea. Mason's ideas usually involved food, chaos, or a public apology afterward. Jacob's ideas sounded like they had paperwork. What kind of idea? I asked. Jacob glanced around the library, then lowered his voice a little. My family has a rental house on Kelly's Island. Mason stopped chewing. Completely. The chip stayed halfway between his fingers and his mouth. Of course you do. Jacob blinked. It's just a small place. Mason slowly turned to me. Aiden, did you hear that? I did. He said small. I heard. Mason looked back at Jacob. Rich people should not be allowed to use the word small. Ryan pressed his lips together. He was trying not to laugh. Jacob looked. Slightly confused, which somehow made it funnier. It's a lake house, he said. 2 bedrooms, kitchen, a living room. Nothing dramatic. Mason stared at him. Jacob Anderson, you just described emotional recovery real estate. I finally laughed. Even Ryan did. Jacob looked down for a second, but there was a small smile at the corner of his mouth. My parents rent it out during the summer, he said. But it's free next week. The table got quieter again. Not heavy this time. Interested. Careful. Jacob continued. I asked if I could use it for a few days. Mason's expression changed. Just slightly. You did. Jacob nodded. I told them I wanted to take a short trip with my friends. The word friends landed softly, like Jacob was still not used to saying it and meaning us. I looked at Mason. For once, he did not make a joke right away. Jacob cleared his throat. They said yes, as a gift, for Ohio State. Ryan leaned back. Kelly's Island? Jacob nodded. Lake Erie. We drive up to Marblehead, take the ferry, stay 3 days and 2 nights. My parents know. Everyone's parents would know. That part mattered. We were 18, but we were not trying to become a local news story. Mason slowly placed the chip down. Wait. He looked at Jacob. 3 days. Jacob nodded. Yes. 2 nights. Another nod. Yes. Mason pointed toward the screen like the island had personally challenged him. On an island? Jacob stayed perfectly calm. It is still Ohio. Mason pointed at him. You keep saying that like it makes this normal. It does make it less far. It makes it rich, but still in Ohio. Ryan laughed then. A real laugh. The first one that had reached his eyes all day. And because I loved him in a way that still surprised me, that laugh made my whole chest loosen. Mason leaned closer to Jacob. So your parents gave you an island trip because you got into Ohio State? A house on an island, Jacob corrected. Not helping. Jacob's smile grew a little. I thought it might help us breathe. Nobody said anything, because that was exactly what we needed. Not a solution, not a new future, just air. A few days where Ohio State, other schools, emails, and every possible goodbye could stop sitting on our shoulders. Mason looked at Jacob for a long second. Then, for once, his voice softened. That's actually really nice. Jacob seemed surprised. Mason sat up straighter, like he needed formality to survive sincerity. I mean it. I'm really proud to have a friend like you, Jacob. For a moment, Jacob just looked at Mason. Then his mouth curved into a small smile. Just a friend. Mason froze. Completely. I blinked. Ryan slowly looked down at the table like the wood grain had become extremely important. Mason opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out, which was terrifying. Mason without words was like a cafeteria without fries. Jacob's smile got softer. I'll take that as a maybe. Mason finally pointed at Jacob. You are becoming dangerous. Jacob looked calm. I learned from you. I almost applauded. I did not because I wanted to survive the afternoon. Ryan cleared his throat. So, we ask our parents? Jacob nodded. If everyone is okay with it. Mason suddenly recovered enough to lift both hands. I am emotionally okay with it. Physically, I will need snacks. You always need snacks, I said. That is because I respect survival. Ryan smiled. I can drive. Jacob looked at him. We can take the car onto the ferry. It'll be easier with bags. Mason's eyes lit up. Bags? Jacob looked suspicious. Mason. What? Pack light. Mason placed a hand over his heart. I promise. I narrowed my eyes. That promise has loopholes. Mason looked offended. I am a man of honor. 2 days later, I would learn that Mason's definition of packing light meant bringing one small bag from home and then trying to buy half an Asian market on the way. But at that moment, sitting in the library with a map still open and our future still messy, Kelly's Island sounded like a miracle. A small one, a temporary one. But sometimes temporary miracles were the only kind you could hold without being afraid they would disappear. By Friday morning, every parent knew the plan, which made the trip less rebellious, but much more likely to actually happen. Ryan picked me up first, then Jacob, then Mason. Mason walked out of his house carrying one small duffel bag. I blinked. That's it. Mason lifted his chin. I promised to pack light. Ryan looked impressed. Jacob looked relieved. I should have known better, because Mason Tran never lied. He just left strategic room for future crimes. The drive from Westbrook to Marblehead was supposed to take a little under 3 hours. Took almost 4. Mostly because Mason got hungry every hour. The first time, Ryan said, we just ate breakfast. Mason leaned forward from the back seat. That was breakfast. This is road hunger. It's different. Jacob calmly handed him a granola bar. Mason stared at it, then stared at Jacob. Jacob, I respect you, but this is not food. This is a compressed apology. Ryan laughed so hard he almost lost his responsible driver face. The second time Mason got hungry, we stopped for drinks. The third time we passed an Asian market. Mason sat up so fast his seat belt locked. Stop the car. Ryan hit the brakes a little too carefully. What happened? Mason pointed out the window. Asian market. They have Vietnamese snacks. I turned around. Mason. He put one hand over his chest. Aiden, culture is calling. Jacob looked at him. You promised to pack light. Mason nodded seriously. And I did. He pointed at his tiny duffel bag. That is packing. Then he pointed at the store. This is destiny. 10 minutes later, Mason entered the market like a general entering a battlefield. He bought noodles, sauces, snacks, drinks, vegetables, a bag of something he called necessary joy, and enough ingredients to make the back of Ryan's car look like a traveling food festival. Ryan stared at the bags. Are we feeding for people or opening a restaurant? Mason smiled. I'm cooking for everyone tonight. I blinked. You cook? Mason looked personally offended. Aiden Miller, I don't just eat food. I understand food. Jacob glanced at the sauces in Mason's arms. That sounds like something you'd write in an admissions essay. Mason pointed at Jacob. Do not flirt with me in the sauce aisle. Jacob's face stayed calm. I wasn't. Mason froze for half a second. That is exactly what makes it worse. By the time we reached Marblehead, Ryan looked like he had survived a group project with 3 different deadlines. Lake Erie stretched ahead of us. White, blue, almost too big to be called a lake. The ferry was waiting, and because Mason had turned the car into a snack warehouse, we did not leave it behind. We drove the car onto the ferry, which made Mason feel better for about 2 minutes. Then the ferry moved. Just a little. Mason stopped smiling. The ferry moved again. He grabbed the seat in front of him. Mason? I asked. He did not look at me. I am becoming one with the lake. Ryan blinked. That sounds bad. It is spiritual, Mason said. Jacob turned immediately. Mason, are you seasick? Mason lifted one finger. I refuse to be betrayed by a lake. The ferry rocked again. Mason closed his eyes. I have been betrayed by a lake. Ryan turned toward the window, which meant he was absolutely laughing. Jacob did not laugh. He pulled a bottle of water from his bag and handed it to Mason. Drink slowly. Mason opened one eye. You carry water like a responsible rich person. I carry water like a person who expected you to need it. Mason stared at him. You expected my downfall? I expected your stomach to be ambitious. I lost the battle and laughed. Mason pointed weakly at me. Aiden Miller, if I don't survive this ferry, tell the world I died doing cultural research. You're not dying, Jacob said softly. Mason looked at him. For once, he did not have a comeback. Jacob stayed beside him, close enough to help but not close enough to make it obvious. And Mason let him. That was the part one noticed. Not the lake, not the wind. Mason let Jacob stay. When Kelly's Island finally came into view, Mason whispered, Land, my oldest friend. 10 minutes after we got off the ferry, he found a chocolate bar. One bite. Color returned to his face. His soul came back from wherever Lake Erie had sent it. I'm okay now, he announced. Ryan stared at him. That was fast. Chocolate is medicine. Jacob looked at him. That is not medically accurate. Mason pointed the chocolate at him. Emotionally, it is. By late afternoon, we reached Jacob's family rental house. Jacob had called it small, which apparently meant 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a living room, a back porch, and a view of Lake Erie that looked like it belonged in a movie. Mason stood in the doorway, silent. Then he turned to Jacob. Small? Jacob looked around. It is smaller than some places. Mason put both hands on his hips. Rich people should come with subtitles. There were only 2 bedrooms. Ryan and I got one, which was normal, practical, completely reasonable, and terrible for my nervous system. Jacob got the other. Mason immediately announced he would take the sofa. I am a generous friend, he said. I looked at Mason, then at Jacob. Sure. Mason glared. Do not sure me. But he still put his bag near the couch. Or, more accurately, he put his bag near the couch and carried all the food into the kitchen. Mason did not check the bedrooms. He did not admire the lake view. He went straight to the kitchen, which told me everything I needed to know about his priorities. Within 20 minutes, the whole house smelled amazing. That was alarming, because Mason being chaotic was normal. Mason being competent was emotionally confusing. He moved around the kitchen with his sleeves pushed up, ordering us around like we had joined his cooking show. Ryan washed vegetables. I set plates. Jacob stood beside Mason, helping with sauces and pretending he was not watching Mason's hands too carefully. Eventually, we sat down to eat. There were noodles, vegetables, sauce-glazed beef, something warm and savory that smelled better than anything from a rental kitchen had the right to smell. A sauce Mason warned us to respect. I took one bite, then looked at him. "How did I not know you could cook this well, Mason?" Mason smiled. "That is classified information." Then, softer, he added, "I live with my older sister. Cooking is a survival skill." I knew a little about Jenny. Mason had moved from Vietnam to the US when he was 13. Jenny raised him, protected him, and somehow controlled him with one look. She was the only person alive who could make Mason wash dishes before he finished complaining about being hungry. That night, in a lake house on Kelly's Island, I understood something. Mason did not just love food. He used it to remember home, to take care of people, to make a strange place feel less strange. After dinner, Ryan and I went for a walk near the lake. Mason said he needed to recover, not from cooking, from deciding what we would eat tomorrow. Before we left, Jacob looked at Mason on the sofa. "It gets cold out here." Mason waved him off. "I'm fine, Jacob." Jacob paused at his bedroom door. "All right, the door won't be locked if you change your mind." Then he disappeared into the room. Ryan and I walked along the dark shoreline. Lake Erie stretched beside us, wide and quiet. For a while, neither of us talked about college. We just walked, hand in hand. When we came back, the sofa was empty. The blanket was still there. Mason was not. Ryan looked at me. I looked at Ryan. Neither of us said anything, because apparently, Mason had finally accepted that emotional support came with better heating upstairs. Ryan laughed under his breath. I smiled. Then we went to our room too. And for the first time in weeks, the future felt far enough away to let us sleep. I woke up warm. Too warm, which was suspicious. Then I realized Ryan's arm was around me, and my face was tucked against his chest, which was not suspicious. It was just extremely dangerous for my ability to function like a normal person. For a few seconds, I did not move. Soft morning light slipped through the curtains. Lake Erie was somewhere outside the window, wide and silver and pretending not to know my business. Then I felt Ryan's fingers move lightly against my back. I looked up. He was already awake. Of course he was. Ryan Smith had apparently decided that watching me sleep was a hobby now. The first time he did it, back when he stayed at my house, I nearly lost my entire personality. This time was different, because now he was my boyfriend. Now there was no pretending, no excuse. No, we just accidentally fell asleep too close. This time we belonged here, together. Ryan smiled. "Good morning, baby." I froze, then groaned. "Can you not be that cheesy before breakfast?" He laughed quietly. "I think it's romantic. It's dangerous." "For what?" "My dignity." Ryan's smile widened. I tried to glare at him. Failed. Then I buried my face against his chest because apparently that was my life now. Soft, embarrassing, unrecoverable. A few minutes later, I forced myself to sit up. "We should get up," I said. Ryan stretched lazily beside me. "Why?" "Because Mason is probably about to faint from hunger." Ryan nodded. "That is a real safety concern." We got ready and went downstairs. The lake house was strangely quiet. No Mason complaining. No Mason announcing breakfast. No Mason asking if emotional support fries could be considered a morning food group. That alone was concerning. Then we saw Jacob. He was sitting on the sofa with a cup of tea, looking like he had already paid taxes and understood retirement plans. He looked up calmly. "Morning." I blinked. "Why do you look like a responsible adult?" Jacob looked at his tea. "I woke up early." "That does not explain the energy." Ryan laughed under his breath. From the kitchen came a smell. Warm, rich, completely unfair. Mason stood by the stove with his sleeves pushed up, moving around like he had been born in that kitchen. He looked over his shoulder. "Oh." The young lovers finally decided to wake up. I leaned against the counter. "Good morning to you too." Ryan smiled. Morning, Mason. Jacob turned toward us. Sit down. Mason is making a surprise. I looked at the kitchen. That sounds either amazing or terrifying. Mason lifted one thumb. Obviously amazing. A few minutes later, he carried out 4 bowls. They looked like noodles, but not exactly. Thin white noodles, slices of beef, fresh herbs, a clear broth that smelled like comfort wearing a very expensive perfume. Mason set the bowls down proudly. This is pho, he announced. Vietnamese noodle soup. You're welcome. He had used the broth base and spices he bought at the Asian market, then somehow made it taste like he had been planning this breakfast for weeks. Ryan leaned closer. It smells incredible. Because it is incredible. Mason sat down and took the first bite. His eyes closed. His whole face changed, like his soul had returned from a long vacation. Yes, he whispered. That's it. That's the feeling. I stared at him. Mason, is it really that good? He opened one eye. Have I ever lied to you about food? I thought about it. Emotionally? Maybe. Factually? No. He pointed at me with his chopsticks. Exactly. So we ate, and I had to admit it. It was amazing. Warm, fresh, deep, like every bite had more going on than my entire emotional life. I looked at Mason. How did I not know you could cook like this? Mason smiled. That is still classified information. By then, I already knew cooking was not just a survival skill for him. But watching him set 4 bowls of pho on the table, I understood it even more clearly. Food was how Mason remembered home, how he took care of people, how he turned a strange lake house into a place where all of us could breathe. After breakfast, Mason immediately started planning the day. Not where we were going first, what we were eating first. Downtown, he said. Island Market. Ice cream. Supplies for barbecue tonight. Ryan raised an eyebrow. It's breakfast. Exactly, Mason said. That means we plan dinner. Jacob sipped his tea. That makes sense for Mason. Mason pointed at him. Thank you for respecting leadership. Soon, we were walking through downtown Kelly's Island. It was small, cute, almost too cute. Little shops, postcards, a coffee place with a hand-painted sign, golf carts passing slowly, tourists in sunglasses, a tiny ice cream shop with wooden benches outside. Mason looked around like he had discovered a new continent, a continent with snacks, which, to Mason, made it historically important. At Island Market, he took control immediately. Vegetables, corn, bread, drinks, barbecue supplies, snacks in case emotions became unstable. The cart filled quickly. Ryan stared at it. Mason, are we buying dinner or preparing for a festival? Mason did not look up. Yes. Jacob pushed the cart calmly, which only made the entire thing funnier. After shopping, we stopped for ice cream. Ryan chose chocolate. I chose strawberry. He looked at my cup. That is the safest flavor I've ever seen. I like stability. That was unnecessary. He smiled. I scooped a little and held it toward him. Try it before you judge me. Ryan looked surprised for half a second, then leaned in and tasted it. Okay, he said. It's good. See? My taste is excellent. His eyes stayed on me. Recently, yes. My face warmed instantly. I hated that he could turn ice cream into emotional sabotage. I hated it more because it worked. Then I looked across the bench. Mason was holding out a spoonful of his ice cream to Jacob. Very casually. Too casually. Jacob leaned in and tried it. Mason froze. Jacob swallowed, then smiled. That's actually good. Mason blinked like his brain had briefly disconnected. Of course it's good. I chose it. Jacob's smile turned softer. Then your taste is reliable. Mason stopped functioning. Ryan saw it too. He looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us spoke. Because we were witnessing history. Mason noticed us staring. What? I smiled. Nothing. He narrowed his eyes. Your nothing has a face. Ryan turned away, laughing quietly. Jacob calmly took another bite of his own ice cream. which somehow made Mason even redder. And that was when I knew my best friend was in trouble. Not normal trouble. The kind of trouble that wore beige sweaters, spoke softly, and looked at him like he was worth waiting for. By late afternoon, the island turned golden. The kind of golden that made everything look softer than it actually was. Even Mason, which was suspicious. We had finished ice cream, walked through a few shops, and watched Mason seriously consider buying a postcard of a cartoon fish wearing sunglasses. Then he checked the bags from Island Market. Corn, vegetables, bread, sauces, things I still could not identify, and enough snacks to support a small emotional crisis. Mason straightened like he had made an important decision. I think Jacob and I should head back first. I looked at Mason. Ryan looked at Mason. Jacob looked at him too, a little surprised. Mason cleared his throat. We need to prepare tonight's barbecue. Then he waved one hand toward me and Ryan. And I am giving the young couple their official couple time. I stared at him. Then I tilted my chin toward Jacob. Really, Mason? Mason's face turned pink. Not a lot, but enough. And I swear, it was the first time in my life I had seen Mason Tran actually blush. Of course, he said quickly. I am a generous friend. I sacrifice for people. I almost teased him. I wanted to. It was right there. Perfect opportunity. But Mason looked genuinely embarrassed. And for once, I decided to be merciful. Character growth was exhausting. Okay, I said. Ryan and I will keep walking around. Call us if you need anything. Ryan smiled. You two get back safely. Mason nodded too fast. Yes, great. Safety. Jacob, let's go. Then he practically marched toward the car like someone escaping a courtroom. Jacob glanced at us. His mouth curved slightly. Then he followed Mason. Ryan waited until they were gone. Then he looked at me. So, I said, Mason is definitely fine. Completely fine. Normal amount of fine. Historically fine. Ryan laughed. And just like that, the heaviness in my chest loosened a little. We kept walking through downtown Kelly's Island. The streets were small and quiet. Golf carts rolled past slowly. The shops had wooden signs, sun-faded postcards, and windows full of souvenirs nobody needed, but everyone suddenly wanted on vacation. Ryan bought a very basic Kelly's Island keychain. I stared at it. That is the most emotionally plain keychain I've ever seen. He grinned. It's stable. Do not use my own ice cream argument against me. We walked toward the shoreline after that. Lake Erie stretched out beside us, wide and blue and almost endless. It still felt strange that something could be a lake and look that much like the ocean. The wind moved through Ryan's hair, very unfairly. I tried not to stare. Failed. Ryan caught me staring. What? I looked away. Nothing. His smile turned knowing. Your nothing has a face. I sighed. I hate that everyone has learned that phrase. We found a quieter path near the water. Not completely empty, but calm enough. There were rocks near the edge, a few trees leaning toward the lake, and sunlight breaking across the surface like someone had spilled gold over the water. For a while, we just walked, hand in hand. No school, no cafeteria, no Westbrook confessions. Almost. Ryan's thumb moved softly over mine. This is nice, he said. Yeah. A pause. Then he added, quieter. Almost makes everything feel less scary. And there it was. Everything we were trying not to think about, waiting outside the beautiful moment. I looked at him. Ryan was staring out at the lake. His face was calm, but I knew him better than that now. Almost, I said. He looked at me. I squeezed his hand. Not as a solution, just as proof I was still there. Ryan smiled a little. Not fully, but enough. We took a few pictures. One of Ryan near the water. One of me pretending I hated being photographed. One of both of us, shoulders touching, Lake Erie behind us. In the photo, we looked happy. Maybe we were. Maybe happiness and fear could exist in the same picture. A little later, we called a small island taxi and headed back to the lake house. I opened the front door first. We're BA, I stopped. In the kitchen, Mason stood very close to Jacob. He held a spoon in one hand. Jacob was leaning down slightly, trying whatever Mason had made. It was probably sauce, or marinade, or some kind of emotional trap. Mason saw us. His entire body panicked. The spoon flew back too fast. Jacob coughed once, surprised. Ryan froze beside me. I froze too, for exactly 1 second. Then I said, very gently, "Relax, Mason. I understand." Mason spun around. His face was bright red. "No, you do not. You saw nothing. You understand nothing." Ryan pressed his lips together. "Mason, we saw it." Mason covered his face, made a tragic sound, then ran toward the bedroom hallway. I watched him go, then looked at Jacob. "Are you okay? I think we interrupted something." Jacob coughed once more, then smiled like he was trying not to laugh. "I'm fine. Mason probably needs a minute." Ryan looked between Jacob and the hallway. "So, you too?" Jacob did not answer. He only smiled. A small smile. Quiet. Very dangerous. I gave him a thumbs up. "Good job, Jacob. You're probably going to gain weight soon." Jacob glanced toward the hallway, then back at me. "That seems worth it." Ryan laughed. "Yeah, I think you should go check on him. He's probably emotionally recovering with chocolate," I added. Jacob set the spoon down. "I'll go see." I looked at the counter. There were vegetables, corn, trays, sauce bottles, and enough supplies to confuse a professional. "We'll handle this for now," I said. Jacob paused. His expression said he did not entirely trust us. Honestly, fair. Then he went after Mason. Ryan and I stood in the kitchen, alone, with barbecue ingredients. This was already a problem. I picked up a knife. Ryan looked at me. "Do you know what you're doing?" "Emotionally? No. Technically? Also no." Ryan laughed. We tried. For maybe 4 minutes. Then Mason reappeared. His face was still a little red. But the second he saw the cutting board, his embarrassment vanished. "Oh no." I looked down. "What?" "Aiden," Mason said, rushing over. "You are destroying cuisine. I'm cutting vegetables. You're disrespecting them." He took the knife from me with the seriousness of a surgeon. Ryan leaned against the counter, smiling. Mason pointed at him. "Do not laugh." Ryan lifted both hands. "I'm not." Mason narrowed his eyes. "You are emotionally laughing." I opened my mouth. Mason pointed at me too. "And don't say anything, or I will let you experience hunger as a life lesson." I closed my mouth. "Wise choice." Ryan nodded solemnly. "All right, chef single." Mason froze. "Ryan." Ryan's smile turned innocent. "Sorry, Chef Mason." Jacob returned quietly and stood near the doorway. I caught his eye, then gave him another thumbs up. Ryan did the same. Jacob's mouth twitched. Mason turned around. "Why are all of you making faces?" I tried to look innocent. "No reason." "Your no reason has a face." Ryan pulled me toward the back door before Mason could ban us from dinner. Outside, the evening air smelled like the lake and whatever Mason was creating in the kitchen. A few minutes later, the barbecue started. Mason took command of the grill like a tiny general. Ryan was assigned corn. I was assigned plates. Jacob was assigned sauce duty, which Mason described as a position of great trust. Jacob accepted it seriously. Too seriously. Mason looked pleased. The food was amazing. Of course it was. We ate on the back porch under string lights while Lake Erie darkened in the distance. For a while, nobody mentioned college. Nobody mentioned emails. Nobody mentioned different schools or uncertain futures. We just ate and laughed and let Mason feed us like that was his way of asking everyone to stay. After dinner, Mason suddenly stood. "I'm going for a walk." That was strange. Mason only walked voluntarily if food was waiting at the end. "I'll come," I said. Ryan looked at me. I gave him a small nod. He understood. Mason and I walked down the quiet road near the lake. The house lights faded behind us. For a while, Mason said nothing. That was how I knew this was serious. I kept my voice gentle. "So, You and Jacob? Mason kicked a small stone lightly with his shoe. He confessed to me. I stopped walking. Really? Mason nodded. Yeah. I waited a beat. And you said yes? Mason looked toward the dark water. I haven't answered yet. For once, I did not joke. Mason's voice got smaller. I need time. Jacob is good, I said softly. And I think he really likes you. I know. He swallowed. That's not what scares me. I looked at him. Mason wrapped his arms around himself. It's Jenny. The name landed quietly between us. Jenny, his older sister, the person who had raised him, protected him, and somehow controlled his entire personality with one look. What if she doesn't understand? He asked. I did not answer right away. I did not have a perfect answer. My family had accepted me. Ryan's family had accepted him. I knew we were lucky, but standing beside Mason in the dark, I realized lucky did not mean everyone got the same road. Maybe it was culture. Maybe it was family. Maybe it was the fear of disappointing the person who had become your home. Mason, I said, I don't know what Jenny will say. He gave a weak laugh. That is not comforting. I know. I stepped closer. But I know you deserve to be happy. Mason looked down. You don't have to answer Jacob tonight, I said. You don't have to solve everything tonight. Just don't punish yourself for wanting something good. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he looked at me. Since when did you become mature? I shrugged. Terrible side effect of dating Ryan Smith. Mason laughed. Small, but real. When we returned, Ryan and Jacob were sitting on the porch, talking. They both went quiet the second they saw us. I narrowed my eyes. That was suspicious. Ryan looked away. No, it wasn't. Jacob calmly took a sip of water. Too calmly. Mason pointed at both of them. You were talking about us. Neither of them answered, which was an answer. Mason sighed. I hate emotionally aware people. No one pushed him. No one pushed Jacob. The night had already asked enough from everyone. Later, in our room, I told Ryan a little. Not everything. Just enough. Ryan sat beside me on the bed and listened. Then he said quietly, We got lucky, didn't we? I knew what he meant. Our families, their love, their acceptance. The thing we once feared had become the thing holding us up. I leaned into him. Yeah, we did. Ryan took my hand. I hope Jenny understands. Me too. The room went quiet. Soft. Safe. Ryan leaned in. So did I. The kiss was gentle. No hiding. No hallway. No rumor. Just us. The lamp went off after that. And for once, the night felt quiet, safe, and completely ours. Morning arrived too gently, which felt unfair. After a night like that, the sun should have at least knocked. Instead, it slipped through the curtains, soft and golden, like it had permission to be there. I woke up in Ryan's arms. Again, his arm was around my waist. My face was near his chest. And for a second, I forgot we were on Kelly's Island. I forgot everything waiting outside that room, except the sound of Ryan breathing beside me. Then I realized Ryan was already awake. He was looking at me with that familiar soft expression. This time, I did not panic. I just smiled. Ryan brushed a strand of hair away from my forehead. Morning, sleepyhead. I immediately closed my eyes. No, he laughed quietly. No, please don't start the day like a romance novel. I thought it was sweet. It was illegal before coffee. Ryan's smile widened. You liked it. I tolerated it. Same thing. I groaned and hid my face against him, which did not help my argument at all. For a few minutes, neither of us moved. No one knocked. No parent called from downstairs. No school bell existed. No Westbrook confessions could reach this room. It was just us. And somehow that made my chest feel too full. Eventually, I forced myself to sit up. We need to get up. Ryan stretched beside me. Why? Because if Mason is awake and hungry, society may already be in danger. Ryan nodded seriously. That's fair. After we got ready, we went downstairs. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No pans. No Mason singing badly. No dramatic speech about breakfast. Jacob was not on the sofa with tea this time. Mason was not in the kitchen. Ryan looked around. Are they still asleep? Maybe. That feels impossible. It's Mason. Anything involving food is impossible. We sat together on the sofa. Ryan leaned back. I rested my head against his shoulder. And for once, I did not overthink it. I did not check the hallway. I did not wonder who might see. I just sat there, with Ryan, like it was normal, like I was allowed. After a while, I said, "What do you think about Mason and Jacob?" Ryan looked down at me. "You mean romantically?" "Yeah." He was quiet for a second. "I think Jacob really likes him." "I know. And Mason likes him too." "I know that too." Ryan's hand found mine. "You're worried." I sighed. "Mason said he hasn't answered yet." Ryan nodded. "Because of Jenny?" I looked at him. "You guessed." "He talks about her like she's his whole family." That was true. Mason joked about Jenny constantly. But under every joke, there was something softer. A kind of loyalty that did not need to explain itself. "I just hope it works out for him," I said. Ryan squeezed my hand. "Me too." A door opened upstairs. We both looked up. Footsteps came down the stairs. Slow, awkward, suspicious. Mason appeared first. His hair was messy. His face was pink. Mason looked like someone had been caught stealing cookies from his own kitchen. Behind him came Jacob, calm, composed, smiling just enough to make the entire situation worse. Mason stopped when he saw us on the sofa. I lifted my coffee. "Good morning, Mason." Ryan raised his cup too. A silent greeting. Jacob smiled. "Morning. You two are up early." Mason mumbled, "Morning." I stared at him, then at Jacob, then back at Mason. "Mason, are you okay? You're being very un-Mason." Ryan looked at Jacob. "Jacob, you look happy." Jacob only took another step down. That smile stayed. Small, quiet, terrible for Mason's survival. Mason pointed at Ryan. "Don't, Ryan." Then he turned to me immediately. "And Aiden, anything you say can be used as evidence in court." I raised both hands. "So now you're not the chef. You're the judge." Mason lifted his chin. "Yes, this court does not allow you to speak." Jacob looked at him. "Then what would the court like to eat before we leave?" Mason froze for half a second, then recovered. "The final ruling is the village pump." Ryan blinked. "For breakfast." "For brunch," Mason corrected. "And possibly the entire menu." That was when I relaxed. Because embarrassed or not, Mason still had the spirit to plan food. Which meant he was alive. Mostly. So we packed up a little, cleaned the kitchen, and drove into town. The village pump was casual and warm, with wooden tables, old photos, and people who looked like they knew exactly what to order. Mason did, of course. He announced that we had to try the perch, because apparently leaving Kelly's Island without eating perch was cultural negligence. I had stopped questioning him. The food was good, really good. Mason looked personally proud of the island, as if he had invented fish. After brunch, we took pictures outside. One of all four of us. Ryan beside me, Jacob beside Mason. Lake wind messing with everyone's hair. Mason complained that his face looked weird. Jacob said it looked fine. Mason immediately stopped complaining. Interesting. Very interesting. Then we went back to the house, packed our bags, checked the rooms, cleaned the kitchen. Mason inspected the counters like a restaurant manager with trust issues. By early afternoon, we drove back toward the ferry. Mason lasted exactly 4 minutes on the boat before grabbing the seat again. "Not this again," he whispered. Lake Erie did not care. By the time we reached Marblehead, Mason looked personally offended by water. Then he ate chocolate and returned to humanity. The drive home should have been faster. It was not. We stopped for drinks, then snacks, then one scenic spot Ryan insisted was worth seeing. Then another place Mason claimed had emotional dessert potential. At some point, I realized what we were doing. dragging the day out, making the road longer, pretending that if we stopped enough times, the trip would not have to end. Nobody said it. Nobody needed to. When we finally reached Westbrook, Ryan dropped Mason and Jacob off first. Mason waved dramatically from the sidewalk. Jacob stood beside him, quieter, but smiling in that new way now, like he had something to hope for. Then Ryan drove us home. We stopped between our houses. The sky was already turning soft purple. I stood with him near my front steps. "That was a good trip," I said. Ryan nodded. "Yeah, it was." He looked tired, happy, but tired. And underneath that, still a little sad. I stepped closer. "It's going to be okay, Ryan." He looked at me. I reached for his hand. "We'll always be beside each other. I promise." His expression softened. "I promise too." The kiss was quick, gentle, the kind that said more because it did not try too hard. Then Ryan walked back toward his house. That night, Jacob sent the group photo to the chat. All four of us in front of the village pump. Windy hair, tired smiles, temporary happiness. For a while, nobody typed anything. Then Mason sent 4 heart emojis. Ryan sent one too. Jacob added, "Good trip." I typed, "Yeah, really good." Asterisk asterisk, then we all said goodnight. And nothing else. Because maybe all of us were lying in our own rooms, looking at the same photo, wondering how something could be over and still feel like we were standing inside it. The next morning, the group chat came back to life. Not emotionally, just Mason, which was close enough. For the rest of the week, Mason kept sending updates. Photos of noodles, photos of brownies, photos of himself cleaning the kitchen because Jenny had assigned domestic labor. Jacob always replied first. "Looks good. You did well. Very responsible of you." Mason always disappeared for a few minutes after that, which meant he was either blushing or standing in front of the refrigerator pretending not to. Ryan and I joined in, teasing him whenever we could. Nobody mentioned different schools. Nobody mentioned Ohio State, which was how I knew all of us were still thinking about it. By Saturday, Ryan and I had a date, a real one, at a small amusement park about 40 minutes from Westbrook. It was the kind of place with bright food stands, old roller coasters, carnival games, and music playing too loudly. Ryan won me a stuffed turtle. I told him it was unnecessary. I carried it for the next 20 minutes. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "You like it," he said. "I respect it. It's a turtle. A very emotionally stable turtle." Ryan laughed. We were walking past the arcade when I saw them. Mason and Jacob, together. Mason was holding a large lemonade. Jacob was holding a bag of kettle corn. They were standing too close to look accidental. I stopped. Ryan followed my gaze, then smiled. "Oh," I raised my hand. "Mason." Mason turned. For once, he did not look panicked. At least not immediately. Mason's eyes moved from me to Ryan. "Aiden." "Ryan." I walked over with Ryan beside me, then looked from Mason to Jacob. "So, you two are here too?" Mason lifted his chin. "Yes, people are allowed to attend amusement parks." My eyes moved between them. "Together." Mason blinked. Then he realized what he had said. His eyes widened a little. "Aiden Miller 1. Mason Tran 0. Quiet," he hissed. I smiled. "So what are you today? Chef? Judge?" Ryan leaned in helpfully. "I think Mason is the guy on a date with his boyfriend." Mason turned toward Ryan. "Soccer captain." Ryan smiled. "Yes." Mason sighed. "Congratulations. You guessed correctly." I froze. Actually froze. Because Mason did not dodge it. He did not bury the truth under 17 jokes. He just said it. I looked at Jacob. Jacob's smile was small, but real. "So," I said carefully, "you two are..." Jacob nodded. "We're dating." Mason cleared his throat. "It was a sudden decision, not a secret conspiracy." "It sounds like a secret conspiracy," I said. "It was not. It has Jacob's calm energy and your chaos. That is basically a conspiracy." Mason pointed his straw at me. "I will remember this betrayal." But he was smiling. A little. Then the smile softened. We're keeping it quiet for now, he said. I still haven't told Jenny. Ryan's expression gentled. That's okay. You don't have to rush. Mason looked at him. Ryan continued. Love is your choice, and I hope your family understands. But you can take your time. Mason blinked, then nodded. That was very cheesy. Ryan smiled. I know, but... Thank you, Captain. Jacob looked at Mason like that small thank you meant more than the whole park. And because Mason hated emotional peace, he immediately pointed toward the haunted funhouse. We're doing that. I stared. No, yes. Mason, Aiden, we both hate those. We love them. We scream. That is participation. Ryan looked at Jacob. Jacob looked at Ryan. Some silent boyfriend agreement passed between them. Unfortunately, we went in. The haunted funhouse was dark, dramatic, and clearly built by someone who understood that teenagers make terrible decisions. Mason walked in first for exactly 6 seconds. Then a plastic ghost popped out. He jumped behind Jacob. I laughed. Then a mirror lit up beside me, and I grabbed Ryan's arm so fast he almost dropped the turtle. Ryan looked at me. Participation. Shut up. For the rest of the funhouse, Ryan and Jacob became our unofficial security team. Ryan walked beside me. Jacob walked beside Mason. Mason kept saying, I am calm. He was not calm. I was also not calm. By the time we came out, Mason and I were breathing like we had completed an emotional marathon. Jacob handed Mason his lemonade. Ryan handed me the stuffed turtle. No one commented. That was love. Later, over dinner at the park, Mason saw a movie poster near the theater entrance. His eyes lit up. Oh, there's a new horror movie. I looked over. No, Mason looked at me. Yes. No, yes. Jacob frowned. You still want horror after the funhouse? Ryan looked at Mason. You two are planning a horror movie for your date? Then he looked at me and smiled. I knew that smile. Ryan, we watched Marvel on our first date. His smile got worse. I remember. Do not bring up the horror movie. Mason turned to Jacob. Aiden and I enjoy horror. Ryan coughed. I narrowed my eyes. We do. Ryan nodded. Right? Like spicy food. Jacob looked confused. Spicy food. Ryan smiled. Aiden once told me liking spicy food doesn't mean he isn't afraid of spice. Mason snapped his fingers. Exactly. We love horror. We are also emotionally vulnerable to it. Jacob took out his phone like he was making a note. Understood. Mason stared at him. Are you documenting me? I'm learning. That is worse. Somehow, after 20 minutes of terrible decision-making, we ended up watching the movie. A late showing. The theater was nearly empty, which made everything worse. Aiden Miller watched 30% of the movie. Mason watched maybe 25. The rest of the time, I watched Ryan's shoulder. Mason watched Jacob's jacket. At one point, Mason had pulled the jacket halfway over his face. Jacob did not laugh. He just let him. Ryan squeezed my hand when I jumped. Also did not laugh. Much. When the movie ended, all four of us walked out into the cool night air. Mason looked exhausted. I felt exhausted. Ryan and Jacob looked unfairly calm. Mason pointed at both of them. Bodyguards. Both of you. 5 stars. Jacob smiled. Glad to be useful. Ryan looked at me. Did you enjoy the movie? I lifted my chin. Emotionally, yes. Mason nodded. Academically, no. We all laughed. And for a few hours, the future did not disappear. But it stopped shouting. That night felt like the first truly happy day since the trip. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. But because Mason and Jacob were real now. Ryan and I were still holding hands. And somehow, even with different schools waiting in the distance, we had found one more reason to stay close. The next morning started late, which was reasonable. After an amusement park, a haunted funhouse, and a horror movie that had personally disrespected my nervous system, I felt I had earned the right to sleep. I was eating breakfast at almost 11. Cereal. Because I was an adult now. and adults sometimes made disappointing choices. My mom was in the living room when the doorbell rang. I checked my phone. No message from Ryan yet. He had morning practice. So I got up, still half awake, and opened the front door. Mason stood there. Beside him was Jacob. Mason looked like he was about to either cry, scream, or ask for a snack. Possibly all three. Jacob stood next to him, calm as always, but his smile gave him away. Something had happened. Mason? I asked. Mason lifted both hands. Aiden. I immediately straightened. What happened? I have news. Good news. Super good news. I blinked. Did you find the cafeteria brownie recipe? Mason pointed at me. Bigger. I froze. Then my eyes dropped to his phone. Mason's smile started shaking at the edges. I got in. For a second, I did not understand. Then I did. Ohio State. My chest opened so fast it almost hurt. You got in. Mason nodded hard. They sent the email this morning. I grabbed him before I could think. Mason made a small shocked sound, then hugged me back. Jacob watched us with that soft, quiet smile that said he had already seen this moment happen and still wanted to see it again. Mason, that's amazing, I said. I know, Mason said, his voice muffled against my shoulder. I mean, obviously, they finally recognized greatness. I pulled back. His eyes were bright. He looked overwhelmed, trying to hide it, failing. Jacob handed me the phone. The email was real. Ohio State, School of Communication, pre-major track, an admissions update, a second review. Mason had been accepted, and somehow that made perfect sense. Not because Mason suddenly became a different person. He was still Mason, the guy who treated snacks like emergency supplies, the guy who could turn one awkward silence into a full public performance. But someone had read his essay, the one about food festivals. Except it had not really been about food. Not only food. It was about culture, memory, families behind folding tables, strangers sitting together with paper plates, people laughing over sauces they could not pronounce. The way food could make a place feel less lonely. Mason had written about food. Somehow he had actually written about people. Jacob looked at him. They saw what you see. Mason went very still. Then he looked away too quickly. Do not be poetic before lunch. Jacob smiled. I'll try. The happiness lasted maybe 10 seconds before all three of us remembered Ryan. The air changed. Mason lowered his phone. Oh! I looked toward Ryan's house across the street. My stomach tightened. Mason had gotten in. I was so happy for him. But Ryan was still waiting. Or at least I thought he was. Then I heard someone call my name. Aiden. I turned. Ryan was running across the sidewalk. Still in practice clothes. Hair messy. Face bright. Brighter than I had seen it in weeks. My heart stopped. Ryan reached me and pulled me into a hug so fast I almost forgot how to stand. Aiden, he said, breathless. I got in. I pulled back. What? Ryan's smile broke wide. Ohio State. They updated my portal. And one of the soccer coaches called. The athletic aide finally got approved. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Mason shouted, Yes! Ryan finally noticed Mason and Jacob standing there. Mason! Mason held up his phone. Me too. Ryan stared, then laughed. Not a careful laugh. Not a quiet one. A real laugh. The kind that looked like relief finally finding a way out. He looked from Mason's phone to Mason's face. You got in too? Mason held up his phone higher. Ohio State, baby. Ryan grabbed Mason into a hug. Mason made an offended noise, then hugged him back anyway. Jacob looked down, smiling. I stood there on my front porch, watching the world rearrange itself again. Ryan's delay had never been about talent. Ohio State had noticed him after the state championship. The video, the final goal, the assistant coach asking for more footage. His name had been moving through admissions, athletics, financial aid, paperwork, timing. Not rejected, not forgotten, just delayed. And now, everything Ryan had worked for had finally caught up to him. My mom came to the door. What's happening? Mason turned dramatically. Ohio State has chosen entertainment, soccer, music, and academic royalty. Jacob blinked. Academic royalty? You know what I mean. My mom laughed, then invited everyone in. Somehow, by afternoon, we were at a small restaurant downtown. Nothing fancy. Just burgers, fries, pasta, salads, and Mason ordering dessert before the main food arrived because he said celebration required structure. We sat in a booth. Me, Ryan, Mason, and Jacob. All four of us. Ohio State. Together. Mason lifted his glass of juice. Okay. Toast. Ryan raised his drink. Jacob did too. Followed. Mason cleared his throat. To us, he said. For surviving admissions, emotions, fairy betrayal, haunted funhouses, and Aiden's vegetable cutting. Hey, you know what you did. Ryan laughed. Mason grinned. To Ohio State. To Ohio State, we said together. The glasses touched, and for the first time in weeks, the sound did not feel fragile. Felt real. I looked around the table. So, we're really going together. Ryan's knee touched mine under the table. We are. Jacob looked at Mason. Mason looked down at his fries, then said quieter, This might sound greedy. I braced myself. With you, it usually does. Mason ignored me. But I wish we could live near each other too. Ryan leaned back. Like same dorm. Mason shrugged. Maybe. Imagine the convenience. Emotional support fries within walking distance. I smiled. That sounds dangerous. Jacob was quiet for a second. Then he said, We don't have to live in the dorms. All three of us looked at him. Jacob sat very calmly. We could look for a small apartment off campus. Nothing huge. 2 bedrooms could work. Close enough to campus. Silence. Mason blinked. Ryan blinked. I blinked. Then Ryan said, Why did none of us think of that? I pointed at Jacob. Because apparently our rich academic prince has been waiting for his dramatic moment. Jacob sighed. I was trying to be practical. Mason slowly lifted a fry. So you're saying I could emotionally support all of you in one kitchen? Jacob looked at him. That is one way to describe rent. Mason placed the fry in his mouth like he had discovered destiny. I support this future. I laughed. Ryan laughed. Even Jacob laughed softly. For weeks, the future had felt like something pulling us apart. Different emails, different schools, different roads. But sitting there, in a booth with fries between us, it finally felt like a door. Not easy, not guaranteed, but open. Ryan reached for my hand under the table. I took it. Across from us, Mason was explaining why apartment life would require a snack budget. Jacob was listening like this was serious policy. And maybe none of us knew exactly what college would be like. Maybe we would still get scared. Maybe Mason would absolutely label cabinet shelves by emotional category. Maybe Ryan and I would still have hard days. Maybe Jacob would regret giving Mason access to a kitchen. But for now, Ohio did not feel like a maybe anymore. Felt like a beginning. And somehow all 4 of us were walking toward it together.